What's up, MetaNerdz? Welcome back to part 2 of the Geonosian species. Now that we've learned about their biology and how their caste system worked, I think we should talk about their history. Located in the Outer Rim, millions of years before the Battle of Yavin, the planet Geonosis was forever changed when a comet crashed into the homeworld's largest moon. This created a debris field that rained down on Geonosis like billions of small asteroids. The effect of this was that 99% of the population of Geonosis was exterminated, and it'd be a race of tiny but hardy insects that would survive this event and evolve over millions of years to become the Geonosians that we know and love today. Extremely intelligent and very hardworking, they were able to achieve space travel and use this to set up business contracts with some other Outer Rim territories. Even before the Great Galactic War, which took place 3,681 years before the Battle of Yavin, Geonosians were already building droids for Bactoid Armor Workshop and pairing up with the Techno Union as a way of selling these droids throughout the galaxy. And in a really interesting event, during this Great Galactic War, there was actually a Mandalorian who competed in the gladiatorial matches. The Sith Empire wanted him to become the new Mandalore, but he did incredibly well in the arena, and was so good that nobody was able to make money by gambling on the games because they knew he would go undefeated. The Geonosians appreciated his combat skills so much that they gave him the title Mandalore the Lesser. Thousands of years later, in the year 24 BBY, Archduke Poggle the Lesser determined that Geonosis would become a member of the Confederacy of Independent Systems. Working with their old pals at Bactoid Armor Workshop, they set to work building a droid army. 2 years later, Poggle scheduled a visit with Dooku and other high-ranking members of the Separatist movement. In this meeting, they were going to discuss how they wanted to proceed with war against the Republic. These plans were of course overheard by Obi-Wan, and when him, Anakin, and Padme all get captured, the Republic comes to rescue them and reveals their own army, setting about the events of the First Battle of Geonosis, which marked the beginning of the Clone Wars. The Geonosians were extremely important to the CIS war effort, and the fighting would come to their homeworld one more time during the Second Battle of Geonosis. It was one of the most difficult battles of the entire Clone Wars, but the Republic was victorious, and Ahsoka and Barriss Offee were successful in taking out an entire droid factory. After the end of the Clone Wars, we see a big difference in the Legends and canon version of the history of the Geonosian species. Let me start with Legends first. A Geonosian engineer by the name of Geyser Delso didn't want to yield to the Republic after the end of the Clone Wars. He took control of a droid factory on Mustafar, but was eventually stopped by the 501st. After this, Geonosian scientists and workers were forced to help build the construction of the Death Star. But the Rebel Alliance was also in contact with the Geonosians, and they helped bring Geonosian scientists to a biolab on Yavin 4. During the same year as the Battle of Yavin, Rebel forces helped to instigate a revolt amongst Geonosians, fighting against their Imperial overlords and trying to take their planet back. But Darth Vader again leads an invasion force and is eventually able to destroy all of the Rebel operatives and kills all the Geonosians that were part of the revolt, and even goes a step further and destroys all of their homes. After Palpatine was killed, the Geonosians cut their ties to Offworlders and became strictly isolationist. This meant that when the Yuuzhan Vong invaded the galaxy, Geonosis wasn't seen as a threat, and was never invaded by them. Now in the canon version, Poggle the Lesser was captured by Anakin Skywalker and Luminara Unduli. While in a Republic prison, he was approached by Orson Krennic. Krennic was actually able to speak and understand Geonosian, one of the hardest languages to learn in the entire galaxy. They had intelligence that the CIS was developing an ultimate weapon, and ironically, Krennic portrays this kind of mirror to the caste system showed by the Geonosians, and that Krennic is so set on moving up the social ladder. He knows that if he can be the one to find out about this super weapon, he could be the highest ranking member of the Republic military. Krennic knew all about Geonosian history and culture, and used this to try and convince Poggle the Lesser that building this super weapon would be best for the Geonosian people. But later, once the station was actually being built, Poggle staged an uprising which covered his own escape back to the Confederacy, though Darth Vader would later catch up with him and cut the Geonosian in half. After this, Krennic was successful in forcing Galen Erso back onto the job, and once the Death Star's hyperdrive was operational and its super laser was installed, the Empire went about sterilizing the Geonosian species and conducted orbital bombardments over the entire surface of Geonosis. 2 years before the Battle of Yavin, we see that the crew of the Spectre, Saw Gerrera, and Captain Rex all uncovered proof of the genocide against the Geonosian species. They also found a Geonosian that Ezra called Click-Clack, who was the sole survivor of the sterilization. He had the last Geonosian queen egg, and was successful at taking care of it until it hatched. The only problem is that the queen that hatched from this egg was also sterile, so all hopes of carrying on the Geonosian species were lost. But unwilling to give up, she hooked up her ovipositor, or basically her womb, to a giant machine that was used to build B-1 battle droids. These droids were a terrifying combination of Geonosian biology and droid parts, which the queen regarded as her children. But even these creepy hybrids weren't meant to be, as none other than Darth Vader caught up with her and cut her in half, taking her womb and using it to build his own army of droids. And that is officially where the story of the Geonosians ends. But before you go, you definitely want to check out these cool facts and some behind the scenes stuff. In the new novel Catalyst, which is the lead up to Rogue One, we learn just how important industry is to the Geonosians. Krennic points out that when they don't have a project to work on, the Geonosians all start infighting and civil war breaks out across the entire planet. He tells Poggle that as soon as the Clone Wars are over, he should expect the Geonosians to tear each other apart unless they had some super-sized weapon that they could build instead. And did you know that these really cool looking spires are built using poop that comes out of this little bug? It's called the Fidna, and these volatile little bugs would explode if they were shot. And the Geonosians somehow learned that if you combine their waste with stone powder, it turns into a cement-like paste. It's easy to shape, but will harden as strong as rock. And there are a couple extra subcasts that I forgot to mention, like the fighter pilots, who lacked wings, required no sleep, and were actually biologically integrated into their starfighters. Another group was the Picadors, who were trained to ride on top of Ores, and mostly worked in the arenas. There was also the zombie caste, which were the Geonosians that took personal care of the Queen, and who are technically considered dead, but who are under the control of brainworms, and still able to carry out the Queen's will. The inspiration for their design came when George Lucas's home was infested with termites. As you can see, a lot of their anatomy, especially their wings, as well as the way their society operates, and even how their buildings look, are all modeled after termites. But the head of a Geonosian is based on early concept art for Neimoidians. And by far the two weirdest behind the scenes facts is that the sounds for Geonosians were made from that of flying foxes and the mating cries of penguins. But as crazy as this sounds, the idea for the Geonosians having built the Death Star came from a conversation had during the movie Clerks. Let me play the clip from Clerks, and then listen to what Lucas had to say about it.
Construction job of that magnitude would require a hell of a lot more manpower than the Imperial Army had to offer. I'll bet they brought independent contractors in on that thing.
In here, because the Geonosians build robots and build things. They're sort of the construction workers. They would be the ones that would probably be contracted to build the Death Star. And they were the ones that Jay and Silent Bob worried that they got killed on the Death Star, but they are, after all, just a bunch of large termites.
Well, that's it for the Geonosian species. If you liked it, go ahead and hit that like button, and be sure to leave a comment down below if I missed any cool facts, or if you have a suggestion for future videos. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at MetaNerdz so you can see us build Star Wars props and cosplays, along with some other cool Star Wars stuff. If you want to help support this channel, check out the description below for our Amazon store and our Patreon. And be sure to subscribe, because we're making videos like this every single day. But more important than all that, remember, and the Force will be with you, always.